On today's Locked On Texans podcast, Cody and I look at some low-key free agent additions that make sense for Houston. But we open up with, should Houston go after game changers or reliable options in free agency?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers across the country, the great state of Texas, and especially here in the city of Houston to a Thursday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to all of our first-time listeners checking out the show, whether it be via YouTube or podcast. Thank you for stopping by. Please subscribe, like, and comment to the YouTube podcast channel and wherever you listen to your podcast. To all of our returning listeners coming back to listen to what old Cody and I got to say today, we really appreciate you for coming back, listening to the Locked On Texans podcast. I'm your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. And on the other side of the screen, y'all know who it is, the Texans beat reporter, credentialed media member, Sports Illustrated's own Cody Davis. We're going to look at the NFL Honors Preview.
Big day.
Close out today's show.
Big day for the franchise.
Very big day. Houston could do a little hat trick.
Little hat trick. Somebody should see their name going into the class of 2024.
Well, we'll see.
Need to.
We will see. Some low-key free agent additions. Guys that may not be the bigger names that are on the market, but will make sense for the Houston Texans. We kind of kick off today's show, but we kick off today's show looking at game changers or reliable options. And I think that goes towards the conversation of spend the money or reserve the money. But today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. This was a conversation Cody and I had via text. We just want to bring it to you guys as we are, getting ready for free agency, which kicks off within a month now.
Yeah, about a month from now.
I
guess the legal quote unquote tampering period begins, I believe, a month from now.
Yeah. Got a month from now. Houston has around, I'm looking it up right now. They have around $74 million, close to $75 million in cap space. And again, I know some of that will be reserved to bring back pending free agents on their own team. And I do believe Houston will look to restructure contracts, probably mainly. I looked at the two tackles for Houston, but to add a little bit more money, maybe 74, 75 can turn into 84, 85 to really add to what they could potentially do in free agency in terms of bringing in players. But again, the conversation of game changers and reliable options. Cody, what are your thoughts?
Well, when you start taking a look at whether you need to bring in a game changer or a reliable option, I think you definitely need to just take a look at position by position, except for the quarterback, by the way. I'm saying that with a smile because it's been a long time coming. But you got to look at position by position and just take a look at what do you need in order to revamp every single position to get you from playoff contention to championship contention within the next year or so. And John, I go back to our conversation on yesterday when we talked a lot about the running back group. We talked about the possibility, entertaining the possibility of them going out and signing Saquon Barkley. That would be somewhat of a game changer because that is someone that's definitely going to come in and basically help excel this offense even more. But if we start on the offensive side of the ball and you take a look at the wide receiving core, you look at the pairing of Nico Collins and Tank Dell, John, me personally, I think the Houston Texans will probably benefit more going after a reliable option. Somebody where, look, if you need them to step in and be, your number 2 wide receiver or due to injury or whatever the case might be, you need them to be your top option in the passing game. They actually have that attribute. That is somebody that you can trust. But on any given Sunday, especially especially when you have Nico Collins and Tank Dell taking the field. You can definitely utilize them as your number 3 wide receiver, just making sure that you give CJ Stroud another reliable option. And I also feel that same way in terms of, and I know this might throw you off a little bit, the cornerback position as well. I look at it from a standpoint, look, you have Derek Stingley Jr. I think by this time next year, we'll be looking at Stingley as, without a shadow of a doubt, a top 3 cornerback in this league. And I just look at it from a standpoint, okay, you definitely got to make sure you go out and get a number 2 option for your cornerback unit, especially considering that you really don't know what the future is going to have in store for Steven Nelson. However, I feel like that could be money that you can reserve on that position, only because, like I mentioned, this time next year, you're looking at a situation where we're definitely going to be looking at Derek Stingley Jr. as a top 3 cornerback in the league. And the only other position that I'm kind of conflicted with is the safety unit, because when we talked about the safety unit a couple of days ago, John, I looked at it from a standpoint, they definitely need a game changer back there. However, I don't know how realistic that's going to be, because look, if the 2024 season started today, started next week, or started next month, I do know without a shadow of a doubt, Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward, both of those guys are still going to be your starting safeties. But it seemed like that's going to be a position where they say, you know what, let's kind of reserve some of this money and just bring in a reliable option, because you never know with these 2 guys, whether it be a decline in their performance or due to injury, you definitely have somebody that could come in and help fill those vacancies.
That's a great point. And I think how Houston goes about what they how they address certain positions in this year's free agency, I think there's going to be an indication on those positions and how they view them in the draft. And so you mentioned the cornerback role. I've talked about, I like Kendall Fuller. I actually like a guy, and you're going to like this name. He's a restricted free agent from Seattle. I think he would be very good. How Houston wanted to use Shaquille Griffin. I think Michael Jackson from the Seattle Seahawks. You like that, but I really do. I really do like. Cody putting up the Michael Jackson shirt, but I really do like Michael Jackson in this game as a maybe 3rd or 4th cornerback. Now he is a restricted free agent. If Houston wants to offer him something, Seattle has the right to match it, and he returned back to Seattle. And I think Seattle may want to do that. He played very good for them last year. But in terms of just improving the depth of the cornerback position, I can see Houston going out there and saying, well, listen, this is a reliable option that we can build around with Derek Stingley. Kendall Fuller, who can play inside, who can play outside, right? Kind of a mixture of both. This would be a reliable option. I think he probably commands somewhere between $9 to $11 million per. But he would be a reliable option that's not going to break the bank. But again, if that's what Houston would look for, then how are they viewing that position in the draft? Is it a high priority position for them coming out of the draft, which I personally believe the cornerback position should be? Same with, I think, defensive tackle. If they're going to go reliable options, then you just make sure that you re-sign Sheldon Rankins, who balled out for you. And I'm also of the belief that if you can retain Sheldon Rankins and find a way to move on from Malik Collins, who I think had a good year for Houston, but I think you can upgrade from Malik, then you do so. But those are 2 reliable options to build around. I don't want to say who I think Houston should or shouldn't or how they feel. I'm not in the front office, and I wish I was. But I think that the parallel between what they do in free agency and what they do in the draft will kind of answer this question. Are they looking for game changers at the running back position? I say go all out at that running back position. I say you have the money to do so now. I say Josh Jacobs, what is going to be $10 million? Saquon, 9, 10, 11 million. I say do that. And you can go and get you a reliable option for the future, someone that can learn and kind of sit behind whoever that star running back could be in the draft. Go find you some star linebackers. It's a very good market right now for linebackers on the top end of the free agency list. And then maybe you just find reliable options in the draft, right? Late in the draft, guys that you can help coach up. And you still got Henry Toto on the team as well. Game changers at wide receiver, reliable options in the draft. I don't know, but This is a good question because I think it comes down to how can Houston build this team. This team ain't gonna be full of stars. You're not gonna spend the whole whatever how much of the cap space on stars. Good teams, great teams has guys that you look around and say, man, I didn't know he was playing this well. He's not a big name. And with the NFL, it's not like the NBA where you can see the face all the time. Like a Michael Jackson from Seattle. How many of y'all knew how good of a year Michael Jackson in Seattle had this year for Seattle? He's not a big name in football, but for Houston, he would be a reliable option that can come in and serve as the Shaquille Griffin, that can come in and serve as a Steven Nelson, that can be that vet if they pair Stingley with another cornerback on the outside who can come in and play some of the maybe 3 or 4 receiver sets in the defense. So that's a great question.
John,
it's a good way for Houston to build.
John, really quick, because I had wrote this down. When I looked at the linebacking core, I would say reliable option, but I feel like that's one of those positions, at least in free agency, they should go all out. And the one guy at the top of my list in terms of this linebacker class that I'm looking at is Devin White. And I think if you have an opportunity to pair Christian Harris and Devin White together, and look, as of right now, his market value is somewhere in the ballpark to 10 to 12 million. I think that's a good deal because look, at the end of the day, we keep talking about the Houston Texans are in prime position to make a realistic run and to be something special, especially while you have a good chunk of your young core on these rookie contracts. I think Devin White will be an absolute steal and a very good free agency pickup for this team.
And a lot of people are out on Devin White right now. Didn't have the best of seasons last year.
But they had a lot going on with him in Tampa Bay, especially that weird scenario towards the end when it was like he was hurt, but somebody said that he was, had quit on the team or whatever the case might be. It just seemed like there was a lot of drama, and I'm pretty sure he's looking for a change of scenery.
Yeah, I don't even think he played the full 17. Maybe there was some injuries. But I do think his play declined. I think that Devin White, name-wise, is still worth reaching out. And I think a new start for Devin White would be good. You look at Devin White's, what you say, his money right now, what would it be, about $10 million a year? Does Houston want to spend that amount of money on Devin White, who you just still has question marks about? But going all in their linebacker position, there's some linebackers out there, like you mentioned, Devin White, Devin Bush. I wouldn't necessarily look at Devin Bush, but the biggest name right now around the league is Patrick Queen. And Patrick Queen is going to command somewhere around 18.5. And again, if you're looking for that game changer, you spend the money. If you're looking for the reliable option, you're looking to kind of save the amount of money and spread it out through certain positions. I am very interested to see how that front office, how D'Amico will build up this roster, because I think Houston is going to be able to come away with 2 major signings in this free agent class. Are you that kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have lined up SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue, the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, and the Nissan Armada. Those are 3 SUVs that honestly are some of the best out there. The Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. The Pathfinder has room for up to 8 people. So if it's me, Cody, some of our best friends, we can all just hop up in the car, take a trip to maybe, I don't know, Austin for a music festival. I don't know. We love music, but they got enough room for 8 people in a Nissan Pathfinder. And with the Nissan Armada, picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Come on, style, luxury. Can tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Nissan got it all, man. Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop at NissanUSA.com. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. We continue our conversation today looking at some of the low-key free agents in this year's class. Now, the conversation around wide receivers right now for Houston, I think, is at an all-time high. There are a lot of quality wide receivers that are coming out. By the way, T. Higgins did name CJ as one of his 5 quarterbacks he liked to play with in a Twitter space. But when you look at some of the top names, the bigger names, T. Higgins, as I already mentioned, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, Michael Thomas is available. Odell Beckham is available. He's a bigger name, maybe not necessarily in terms of production now in his career, though I do think that his production did take a hit due to the lack of downfield success he and Lamar Jackson were not able to get. So I do think that Odell has, I'm not going to say a lot left in the tank, but he can still be very productive for a very productive passing offense, which Houston was one of the best passing offenses in the NFL. But when I look at if Houston strikes out on Mike Evans, and I'll get to why I think they should just not look at Mike Evans. If I look at if the Bengals end up franchise tagging T. Higgins or somebody else comes in and scoops Higgins, when I look at the wide receiver group in terms of free agents and who's out there right now, guys, Curtis Samuel is a player that I really do like. So I think now you look at, because in the past you will look at, we got to give this guy some money so we can fill this position. Now you got to look at filling roles, right? And I think when you look at Tank and how Tank is a true versatile receiver, he saw most of his snaps during his rookie year, which ended up being 237, lined up outside. He only saw 97 snaps lined in the slot. Looking at Tank and his versatility as a receiver, that's number one. And how Houston has flourished many times this past season when the receivers were healthy and on the field. I think all of that took a dip once Tank Dell went down, but they flourished in 11 personnel, a personnel that Curtis Samuel is not only used to during his time in Washington, but he's also thrived in his role. He's a true slot receiver. Since 2020, he's seen a massive increase playing the slot role for Washington. Also, his time with the Carolina Panthers, he can still hurt a team downfield. I looked up the numbers in the past 4 seasons because he missed the 2021 season. 573 yards downfield. Again, in the majority of that time, he's lined up in the slot, but he can definitely hurt you in the intermediate routes where he saw a lot of his action the last 2 seasons. 600 plus yards in the last 2 seasons, 4 TDs in the last 2 seasons. His presence could unlock Tank's production. It would also give CJ Stroud another dual threat receiver on the offense. He hauled in somewhere in between 73% of his passes thrown his way with just 4 drops on 84 targets in 2023. And according to Spot Rack, he'd command an average of $11.5 million at 25 years old, which I think is a better value compared to Mike Evans, who is 30, an average salary of $23.8, nearly $24 million per year. I'm all about looking at the numbers and how they make sense, because that's what the general manager here in Houston has said. How do you value a player, and how does that player and that money line up? So I really do like the thought of bringing in Curtis Samuel, because I think that would allow Tank to be a true weapon. Again, Tank can line up inside. He was dominant outside. Same for Curtis Samuel, so that will put a lot of pressure on DBs for the Houston Texans. And I also like KJ Osborne. Played with the with Minnesota, right? The last couple of years, we've seen him blossom in his role. 650 years. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3. The last couple of seasons, we've seen him blossom in his role in Minnesota. Didn't play his rookie year, but in 2021, 655 yards, 650 yards the following year, 540 this past year. He's not going to give you a lot of big moments or big plays, but he's going to be able to score a touchdown. He's going to be able to be useful. And here's the thing. What Houston thought they were going to get and what they visualized they wanted to get out of Robert Woods, this is what KJ Osborne could do for this team. And he's also a guy that can line up in the slot, line up outside. He's done it both. 859 plays in the slot, 905 line wide. So he's a very versatile receiver. He can do a lot. The last season, he had a problem with drops, also had some issues with the quarterback position. But in his first 2 years, you saw him really thrive for Minnesota, being a very good number 2 receiver this past year, number 3 with the emergence of Addison. So for Houston, they have to address the wide receiver position, no doubt about it. But if some of these guys get too expensive, or if other teams are just swooping in and paying that amount of money that Houston maybe wanted to pay, there's still options out there that they can bring in, which leads us back to if you bring in a Curtis Samuel, if you bring in a KJ Osborne, now in the draft, are you looking for a game changer or a reliable option? Which would be a great question for Houston, and to see how they go about that.
I like all the points you made, John, and I think I probably should have just called this segment low-key wide receivers that the Houston Texans can add, because that's the one position I'm looking at as well. And I'm going to Cincinnati, but I think it'll be more realistic for the Houston Texans to go out and sign Tyler Boyd, because I'm looking at it from a standpoint. Look, there's no way in the world Cincinnati is going to let T. Higgins walk. There's no way in the world Cincinnati is going to let T. Higgins walk, especially after the disappointing year that they just finished. And we know that 1-2 combo between him and Jamar Chase is one of, if not the best in the league. So they're going to have to pay a lot of money to him, which means that Tyler Boyd is definitely going to be on the market. I look at Tyler Boyd as the perfect wide receiver that the Houston Texans need. First and foremost, if everybody is healthy, he definitely gives you, without a shadow of a doubt, a solid number 3 option who has been fairly healthy throughout his whole entire career. Why is that important? Because I feel like what you wanted out of Robert Woods and Noah Brown, you can get all of that into one with Tyler Boyd. Because look, first and foremost, John, I looked at his market value. He's only going for about $8.5 to $9 million a year as of right now for his annual salary. So he definitely going to fit the mold into somebody that is very affordable for the Houston Texans. And two, and most importantly, even if something happens with Nico or Tank Dell, whatever the case might be, he could come in and be your quote unquote wide receiver number 2 or wide receiver number 1 or whatever the case might be. Like, I feel like Tyler Boyd would be the perfect solution to fix what the Houston Texans need to do with their wide receiving core. Look, I know you always been a big fan of Mike Evans. I've always respected Mike Evans. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt, future Hall of Famer. I think it's remarkable to see what he has been able to do. A lot of people started really paying attention to Mike Evans these last couple of years, you know, when he was playing alongside Tom Brady and all this other stuff. But you got to remember, it didn't matter who his quarterback was. Jameis Winston, Tom Brady, now Baker Mayfield. Mike Evans has done a phenomenal job throughout his career. However, 20-something million at the age of 30, and you know without a shadow of a doubt he's going to start hitting that decline. I don't want the Houston Texans to put themselves in that position. Just stay with the 2 guys that you have at wide receiver, bringing somebody like Tyler Boyd. I don't think, if you look at the NFL in its totality, if you get a 3-headed monster like that, can you name a better wide receiving core?
I think we can probably name a better wide receiver core just based off of what Minnesota has. I like Addison. Of course, we all love Jameis.
But here's the thing with that. Minnesota don't have a CJ.
Minnesota does not have a CJ. And you know what? I think the wide receiver position, that's a great conversation because you can still get a very good receiver at 59.
That is true.
But a lot of people are mocking Roman Wilson from Michigan there. I think he'd be a great fit for Houston. So, again, game changer in free agency, reliable option in the draft. How does Houston go about it? How do you guys feel? Cody, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about Gus Edwards, running back, spent this past season in Baltimore, 4.2 yards per pop, ran the ball very well for the Ravens, almost had 1,000 yards. How do you feel about him?
It's funny that you asked me that. Yeah, low-key free agent. It's funny that you asked me that. I would say I would be all for it if the Texans miss out on Saquon Barkley.
Okay.
and you end up bringing Devin Singletary back. Because I look at it from a standpoint, if you bring Devin Singletary back and he's still your quote unquote running back one or whatever the case might be, you need to bring somebody. I actually like that move. I think that would be smart, which I'm hoping for a better situation when you look at the Houston Texans offensive backfield. But I wouldn't mind Edwards. I really would not. I really would not mind Edwards at all.
There are some low key backs that would make sense if they again strike out on Pollard, Jacobs, Barkley, DeAndre
Jacobs
Swift.
Is the name.
He's 25 years old, guys. DeAndre Swift, and he may be ready to get out of Philly. So he would be good here in Houston. He's been successful, not a number one running back. So I think again, you re-sign Singletary, partner him with DeAndre Swift, and still draft a running back at some point in the draft. But there are some options out here. You look at what Miami was able to do under Mike McDaniels, who again, where is he from? Well, he is from the Shanahan coaching tree, who is also from the Shanahan coaching tree here in Houston, Bobby Slower. And so they have a running back out there who has some good moments for them this past year. And in his career, Ahmed, he may fit here in Houston, but again, if you bring him in, are you looking to upgrade and get a game changer in the draft and maybe not wait late to draft a running back, maybe draft one a little bit earlier. So it's some guys out there that can make sense for Houston. And I think when you get to the lower level guys, that's when you really start looking at a running back by committee group, which half of the league is successful at doing.
Really quick, I want to ask you your opinion about this because I just thought about this. I do not see Baltimore departing from Edwards. However, J.K. Dobbins will likely be on the market. Yeah. And I understand, I think last year marked his third knee injury. If you are the Houston Texans and you miss out on Jacobs, Pollard, which I don't see Dallas letting him go, and Barkley, and you are in this scenario where you have to bring back Devin Singletary, do you also look at the possibility of taking a chance on J.K. Dobbins, who you know without a shadow of a doubt is going to be very affordable? Then that's going to put you in a position where you could kind of spend money on, let's say, a Devin White or, Patrick Queen or whatever the case might be. But it's one of those gambles where it's high risk, high reward. Like 3 knee surgeries in the past 3 to 4 seasons. However, when healthy, when on the field, you're looking at a very reliable option in your backfield. And then you're also looking at it as a standpoint, how much comfortable is he going to be knowing that he doesn't have to hold that title of quote unquote running back number one? That's just a thought that just popped in my head.
Yeah. Also, you know who else is? We're talking about the running backs here, kind of the same way we talked about the wide receivers. But you want to know who else is 26 years old, still young, who he is coming off injury, but he had a very good year. Houston had an opportunity to see him firsthand. Zach Moss. So if you don't get some of these top end guys, you got guys that you can really get later on in free agency, or the bottom tier guys that I think can come in and just add to what Houston is trying to do. We come here a lot to talk about the Houston Texans and a lot of our football stock, but did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But wait, get this. Now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from another retirement account with a 3% match. That's right. No cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gives you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. The offer is good through April 30th. I really need to look into this. The offer is good up to April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. As of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research, investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to ROAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subjected to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC is a registered broker dealer. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Before we close out today's show, NFL Honors Preview, Cody, take it away.
Yeah, tonight is a big day for the franchise. For the first time ever in franchise history, CJ Stroud will be the first quarterback, first player to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Oh my God, what a surprise. And on the defensive side of the ball, Will Anderson Jr., the first player in franchise history to win the Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. Oh my God, I was so shocked. I didn't see that. However, I don't even care about none of that, John. There's two things that I will be looking forward to the most. Coach of the Year and the Hall of Fame class of 2024. That's right, I say 4. I didn't say 4. I say 4. John, there is no way in the world that no coach should win Coach of the Year over head coach DeMeco Ryans. And I get it. Some people might listen to that and think to themselves, well, Cody, you're just a homer. No, I'm not. Because it's the truth. Mm-hmm. Nobody in their right mind, except for you, John, but you said if everything goes right. And to my point, everything didn't go right for the Houston Texans, but they still did it. Mm-hmm. They not only won a division, they won 10 games, and they made it to the second round of the playoffs. At the start of the year, people looked at DeMeco Ryans. Some people thought he was making a mistake by taking this team, this franchise, as his first head coaching gig. Some people, at best, like myself, had this team winning no more than 6 games. And when you take a look at other head coaches around the league, i.e. Kevin Stefanski, I get it, I understand it. He had a terrible hand dealt to him. However, if you go back and take a look at teams that was projected to make the playoffs and make some noise, the Cleveland Browns would have always been one of those teams, at least in my opinion. Same thing with Dan Campbell
in the playoffs
and the Detroit Lions. Yeah, who Houston beat in the playoffs. So that's one award I definitely hope take place. DeMeco Ryans, and then you have for the 3rd year in a row. And John, I'm so sick of talking about this. Andre Johnson belongs in the Hall of Fame. The 2024 class will be revealed tonight. And I'm hoping that I could come on here with my GOAT shirt on tomorrow and have a conversation about Andre Johnson being the first player in franchise history to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's all I got to say about the preview, man. I just want those two because we know who's going to win Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year. We already know that. It's a given. But head coach, Hall of Fame class, man, come on, bro. Come on.
Rooting for Andre. I mean, honestly, guys, I can see him getting snubbed again.
He can't, John.
It's not about what I would do. It's about what I can see the NFL snubbing Andre again. I think Houston gets the hat trick with Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year. I think it's a shame that Nick Caserio isn't named for Executive of the Year, though I love that I believe the Detroit Lions general manager, his name slips me right now. He's a very great candidate for, and he probably should win Executive of the Year, but no doubt in my mind that we here in Houston will run off with 3 of those picks, 3 of those awards, rightfully so. But again, y'all may kill me for this. I can see them waiting another year. Should they? No, but guys, remember, they're guys that played 20 years ago, 10 years ago that are still waiting to get in. And they may be more of a priority to get into the Hall of Fame than Andre Johnson. Though I understand, are they a top 5 player at their position? top 6 player at their position of all time? Maybe not, but eventually Andre gets in. Hopefully it's tonight, but I can see it happening.
I'm not about to make this no wide receiver greatest all time debate, but John, I can't name, and I know it's gonna sound crazy trying to put Andre Johnson in the top 10, but it's like what he was able to do, man. And I know we repeat this every year, every time we talk about this, but I'm like, what he was able to do without a quarterback, man. Like majority of these other wide receivers that they putting in over him, they did it with Hall of Fame quarterbacks next to him, like. And I
No, I
just look
get
at
it. I get it. I
Andre,
get
like
it.
the
I
fact,
get the
and
OG.
I don't know, I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but I believe he's like 12th or 13th all time in receiving yards. And the best quarterback that he ever played with was Matt freaking Schaub. That should get him in alone right there by himself. Come
No,
on,
I get it.
man.
Listen, I get it. It's not
Just
me.
talking about it just get me nervous, man.
Don't get nervous. Don't get sad. We'll just wait to see what the results are and briefly talk about it here on the Locked On Texans podcast.
I'm not
Thank
talking
y'all
about if
for
he don't
listening.
make it. Spoiler alert, I'm not talking about it. We'll just segment 1's gonna be D'Amico win, yes. Segment 2 is gonna be, oh my God, CJ and Will, we didn't know. We'll close with something else. If Andre Johnson gets in, that's what we're opening with. I'm already. Don't even text me tomorrow morning. The show is already outlined, plain and simple. There you go.
Thank y'all for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Hopefully, we will open up the show talking about Andre Johnson getting the call to the Hall of Fame. But until tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, peace.